Every year in April and May, something very magical happens in Scotland. Shady woodlands are transformed with blankets of colour, and most notably are the famous Scottish bluebells. These delicate bluish-purple flowers flourish in ancient woodlands and reach their peak in early summer before the leaves above stretch out and block the sunlight. This is what heaven looks like. And despite living in Scotland for almost 10 years, I've still never painted the bluebells. Until now. I recently went out with my artist buddy specifically to capture these beautiful flowers. She had discovered this secret location while walking her dog, and as soon as I saw her photos, I knew I needed to see this in person and paint it. To be honest, I desperately needed this painting session because I have been so inundated with home renovations that I've barely been out to enjoy the summer. So I thought I would record as much as I could, and you're actually watching this because I was able to hold my phone with my left hand while I painted, something I've gotten very good at, especially during plein air pro when I was out painting every day and recording most of the process. But I do apologize if there are any shaky moments. Now, one thing I knew I needed to do was to not create a huge amount of pressure on myself to paint this because it was my first time. Anytime you're out painting something for the first time, your only focus should be discovery. I knew I was going to be doing more than one sketch, so I was also in a very playful mindset. But the problem with a location like this is that it is so overwhelmingly beautiful in person, and there's so much to look at. It's like, how do you even choose a view to paint? So one thing I did was look around and find something that jumped out at me and inspired me, and of course that included a fallen tree covered in moss. So I thought, how could I create an interesting composition, sort of highlighting this mossy fallen tree, but also tell the story of the bluebells. I knew I was going to be using a lot of green in this scene because, well, look at it. Everything around me is just glowing with green light. And that would also help my blues and pinks and any of the brighter colors really stand out. So my strategy wasn't to subdue the greens as much as I normally would. It was actually to use the green as my base color and build up the flowers and the other areas of interest from there. And it was a bit of a risky strategy because I typically like to mute down my greens when there's this much of them. It can be a little bit overwhelming and distracting in itself. And in the end, I don't think it was as successful as it could have been. But again, I knew I needed to just get a sketch under my belt to even get started. But watching this footage back and looking at the paintings after critiquing myself, I learned so much. One thing that could have helped was to keep the distant area, the background, a little bit more grayed down or a little more muted, kind of add a little more variation between that background and the meadow. That would have helped my depth a little bit more in the scene. It's so easy to just get overwhelmed with all of the green glowing light, and you kind of lose track of how to make adjustments to make a successful painting and not just paint exactly what you see in person. But something interesting happened during this painting experience. I actually forgot my normal glasses in the car, so I only had my prescription sunglasses. So I was actually staring at this field of purple flowers with tinted sunglasses, which drastically changed the colors. I found myself needing to tilt them down and look over the top of them to see the real color in comparison. But on the other hand, the sunglasses cut down on a lot of the glare that was happening. So it actually made the purple flowers more vivid to me. So with my sunglasses on, I was seeing a bit higher contrast, which helped to identify the patches of flowers. But without them, I was able to see the true color. So it was a really interesting back and forth kind of thing. So that first painting I did was with watercolor. and I wanted to try it with gouache as well. So I did some color swatches and compared side by side like different color mixing options, and decided this time I was going to focus more on these two trees that I saw coming up out of a patch of flowers. I just loved the way the dappled light was hitting it. But I also wanted to work a little quicker, which would force me to make faster consecutive decisions. And it always, I guess, makes it feel a little more intuitive. I don't know about you guys, but I often feel almost like a frantic energy when I'm painting something so beautiful, or especially if it's my first time experiencing it. It's like I feel this overwhelming need to just paint as much as I can, paint everything. And a lot of the rules or things that I know kind of go out the window. They go out of my brain. A lot of times it feels like you're relearning things you already knew or thought you knew in the moment, on the fly, which I think is what makes plein air so challenging, in addition to all the elements and, the light changing constantly. It's also very challenging to translate something that's 3D down onto 2D, as well as making creative decisions, artistic decisions, how to represent things in an artistic way or in your style and put that down on the paper. There's just so many layers to it. But I can honestly say that I was the happiest I've been in so long painting outside, just surrounded by beauty, beautiful weather, good company. And days like this just remind me how it's always worth it to go through those challenges of plein air, because it's a lot easier not to paint outside, and it's a lot easier to kind of tell yourself that you don't know how to do it or can't do it. And sometimes I can't do it or I don't do it the way I want to. But each of these little experiences really adds up over time. You've probably heard me say all of this 1,000 times before, but it's how I've learned over the years. It's how I've gotten to where I am as an artist. And I get really excited thinking about the potential every time I go out, thinking what might happen, what I might learn. And I know from years of experience now that all these tiny little seeds of knowledge really grow eventually. So one of the strategies I had for this painting was to use a bigger flat brush because I really wanted to play with more chunky brush marks. I was also squinting a lot. I was trying to see the bigger shapes and the bigger areas of value in my scene before touching the paper. I was way more free with color in this one, splashing different phthalos and different pinks here and there. Mostly just trying to capture a sense of light, I guess. A very interesting conversation happened in my Patreon chat lately, which was about seeing purples and greens together. If you have any kind of color blindness or trouble seeing different combinations, certain landscapes aren't really that appealing. Like imagine if you couldn't really see the difference between green and purple. This bluebell scene would probably look pretty bland. I'm sure you can still appreciate the dappled light and the beautiful subjects and everything, but the color itself wouldn't really be playing that big of a role, and therefore the focus might be totally different. And that really got me thinking about how important contrast is. And that's sometimes the first thing that goes out of my mind, the first thing that I neglect or overlook when I'm really excited to jump into painting. During Plein Air April, I made it a point to do a small value sketch before I started painting each time. And as much as I just get excited about color and want to jump straight in, I do find that it really helps. And in retrospect, of course, I see now I really should have done that here because all of my values were a little bit muddled and I lost the sense of interest and contrast with the dappled light. However, I did learn a ton about color and strategy for layering color and using big chunky marks versus small detailed marks, how to represent the flowers in different ways. So once again, I'll be able to use this little painting and my reference photos and be able to paint something closer to my initial vision. If you've watched any of my past lessons learned videos, you've seen me take these plein air studies back into the studio and paint it again using what I learned outside along with a more intentional approach. So in June, I plan on taking my patrons along that process. And at the end of the month, we're going to do a live paint along together. inspired by these scenes. So if you're interested in that, please do join us over there. I'll leave a link in the description. I will be a little bit quieter here on YouTube during June because my dad is visiting and he's going to be helping us with a ton of house projects, which I'm very excited for. And of course, we're going to be doing lots of sightseeing, so I'm sure I'll get some more plein air in, as well as lots of beautiful reference photos. So I hope you're all enjoying the start of your summer and getting some good painting time in. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And I would love to hear about any special flowers that bloom in your area, something that's iconic for your location. It's always fascinating to learn about that. And maybe if it entices me enough, I will make a plan to visit in the future. All right, I will see you all again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.